Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you all for coming. We're going to begin our meeting this evening with a moment of silence for Frances Juneau. Frances was 83 years old and a 57-year resident of Old Saybrook, and she has passed away. Among the many things listed in terms of her accomplishments, she worked as the head cook at the Old Saybrook High School for more than 35 years, where she was known as a very caring person. So we're going to have a moment of silence for Ms. Juneau. Thank you very much. Audience of citizens, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address us this evening? Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Lee and Ms. Sullivan, if you would like to give you a report from the student members.
I do have a lot of stuff over the past first month.
Okay.
First one I have about the building project.
Mm-hmm.
A lot have been saying that it is taking a while, but I also told them that it's because of the drainage problem. That's what I heard. And they're asking, wasn't it supposed to be completed in the summer, or was in the before fall, before the school started? So I just said that it was supposed to be scheduled to around when school started, and then I just said the current issues are the drainage ones.
Mm-hmm.
And then another one for school activities was the book chats that occurred, and I had Miss Riffle myself, so it was very organized also. And compared to last year, it was also more coordinated, I feel, and because there were more questions that were prepared or prepared ahead of time, and also helped people participate more. But they also said that some groups were too big or too small, so it could have been split apart. And then the upcoming Spirit Week or Field Day, a lot of people are really excited about that, but there are a few disagreements that occurred through the voting. And in my class, personally, there's been a lot of controversy when we voted. We were either music or cartoons, so there was some parts that were heated discussion about which one to go for. So they've also said that this isn't, they want a more effective way of voting, I think. That's what they said. So that's what I have.
Okay.
So to touch on obviously a very important topic is NEASC. So from a student's perspective, I think it went very well. I spoke on Sunday in front of the NEASC board, and that went well. I think to just highlight on just the positivity and just our school as a whole. After I presented, I talked about collaboration and problem solving. And afterwards, I asked if anyone had any questions. And I think it really speaks volumes that I had really no problems speaking and answering their questions. I mean, like, if we were doing something wrong, I feel like I would have had a problem answering their questions, but everything went really well. And I felt like comfortable talking about like what we do and speaking to the things we do in the classroom and outside of the classroom. And then even like throughout the week, the NEASC members were really lovely. Everyone knew like my name, so that was great. So there was a lot of interaction between the students and the NEASC members. A lot of students got shadowed, and then they came into our classrooms and just kind of scoped out like what was going on, and they took notes obviously on just the setting of the classroom. And then sports, to touch on that, the boys soccer, they're going to states. Their record is 6-3-1, so that's very exciting. The girls soccer, they are 3-4-2. Field hockey, we're doing well. We've had a couple wins there, and we have a big week coming up, so that's exciting. And then the fall play is You Can't Take It With You, and that is playing So the thespians, they're doing that November 6th, 7th, and 8th. So everyone that I talk to says it's going really well. They're working really hard. It's like a comedy, so everyone's pretty excited to see that, because in the past, like last year, we did Romeo and Juliet, so that was a little heavy. So this year, a comedy will be nice and fun. And then some club activities. All the clubs are obviously underway. We've had a couple already events within the clubs. Best Buddies had an outing. They went mini golfing. And then we're going apple picking, so that should be fun. And then our Interact Club, we raise money and go to the soup kitchen and make breakfast for the soup kitchen. Then we also have students that go down and help at the pantry, bringing things out to the cars and whatnot. So we've had a lot of events going on. And then also another program at the high school that's underway that's really fabulous is the internship program. A lot of students are involved in that, and everyone I talk to that's been involved in the internship and who is currently in the internship program says they love it, and it's just such a great experience because they get hands-on experience to go out into a work field and really learn about the certain work field, and not only to learn about themselves and to learn about like what their interests are and what they want to do in the future. So that's a great program that we have going on that's well underway. And then, just to touch on a field day again, everyone's really excited about that, but also it's just a great student-wide activity that we do, and it really kind of bonds it. Like, it's a great bonding experience, and we also do a lot of fundraising in field day. We do, so like for the Interact Club, we sell turkey, like paper turkey legs, and the money that we raise for that goes towards buying families in our community that wouldn't have the money to buy a Thanksgiving meal. We buy them turkeys, and last year we actually raised enough money through field day to not only buy turkeys for Thanksgiving, but we had leftover turkeys, so we gave those to families on Christmas who wouldn't have had the chance to have a nice Christmas dinner. So a lot of great things going on and very exciting. So thank you.
Very nice. Thank you. Any questions or comments from the Board of Education?
I could just add the turkey legs. We were the Old Saybrook Public Schools with Interactive leading the charge was the biggest contributor to that fundraiser.
Yeah.
That's a Rotary Club fundraiser, and so we're going to do it again.
Yep.
Karen?
No, I just said it's a great presentation.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. The only thing I will also say, there were a couple of things that sound like maybe Ms. Riffle would need to follow up with you in terms of some of the voting and things, but I saw the superintendent taking some notes. So I think what we'll do is ask her to get back, because Ms. Riffle's not here right now, and make sure that somebody follows up with you on those issues that really the board would not have much involvement with, but we will make sure that the administration follows up with you, okay? And thank you both for your reports. All right. Any correspondence, Karen, at this point?
I do have one piece of correspondence. It's from the president of Kiducation, those drop boxes for clothes and things, and thank you. And they have sent a donation of $105.61 from the Community Crusade for Children's, the Kiducation Fund. And the money was generated from CBS and Old Saybrook and Matthew Maurer Sports Bar. I'm not sure what that is, but we appreciate that. So that's the correspondence.
Excellent, thank you. And also correspondence going around on the clipboard, some of the announcements and things. We have, I think it's been around.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's been around. So now we're going to go to approval of minutes, Board of Education regular meeting minutes of September 2nd. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Karen, second.
Second.
Kelly, any corrections or comments that came in on the September 2nd one, Kathy?
There were not.
Okay. Are there any comments or corrections by the Board of Education tonight? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Board of Education regular meeting minutes of September 16th, 2014. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Karen, and a second.
Second.
Joanne. Any comments or corrections, Kathy?
No, none received.
Thank you. And are there any comments or corrections by the Board of Education tonight? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? One abstention. Mr. Savino. And the Board of Education special meeting minutes of September 17th. Can I have a motion to approve? Kelly, and seconded by Joanne. It sounded like I heard Joanne. Any comments or corrections, Kathy?
Yes, Holly made an edit to the vote, the motion.
Okay.
To include her name as opposed.
Add Holly as opposed,
Yes, so that's
Okay.
now posted.
and that's now posted as a corrected one. Any other comments or corrections by the Board of Education right now? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving with the correction that's been made and posted, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed or any abstentions?
Abstain.
2 abstentions. Mr. Savino and Ms. Broder. All right, thank you very much. We are going to, you will notice, by the way, as we move into the substantive part of the board meeting at our conversation, the self-evaluation board self-evaluation meeting that we had, we discussed putting in estimated times for agenda items, just to give people an idea of thank you to Joanne for putting that suggestion in, and we are, obviously, we will follow whatever the appropriate things are in terms of the time that it takes to deal with issues, but the board wanted to have a little bit more structure in the agenda, so that's what we've added to the agenda tonight. So I will turn over the update on the turf field, track, and tennis court to Jan. I'm sure will have the comment for us. Julie and Phil are also involved, but I think we'll just let Jan make a report at this point.
Sure. We are obviously, if you go by, you can tell that work has halted. It was due to be completed, to speak to Kevin's, on September 19th originally. And while we never thought we'd make that date exactly, we were pretty much on time. At this point, work has stopped. As you correctly said, Kevin, because of the percolation test results did not come in as they should have. On September 26th, there was a meeting with the contractor, the engineer, and us, clients, with council present. And the goal was to try to come to some resolution, and no resolution was arrived at that time. So our attorney and the engineer's attorney have been working towards coming up with resolutions, and the contractor was contacted and given the acceptable resolutions from the engineer, and we are waiting for a response at this time. It's really the update since last week met.
Now, relative to the track and the tennis courts, I believe there had been some additional work that was done, but do you want to say anything about what's happening with the track and the tennis court at this time?
As of this moment, although we heard late today that perhaps the tennis court might be moving forward, we have no confirmation at this
Okay.
time.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the Board of Education members at this time?
So, it's disappointing that there's no resolution at this point. I know you're working toward that. So is this the contractors? Is it a lack of experience? I mean, I don't know a lot about
So the
building, but is there drainage? Do you install, like, I know with a house, you do a curtain drain? I'm just a little confused about the process or lack of.
Can I just interject?
Sure.
The superintendent can help me out here as well.
Yeah.
So there is a controversy about which one or more than one parties may or may not be at fault. And at this point in time, we are represented by council, and
Right.
so are others involved in the process. And it probably is not a time when we can answer any substantive questions, because
Okay.
a fact-finding still has to occur. Independent experts will get involved to make a determination. So it probably wouldn't be a good idea for us to put forth any opinion, because we actually don't have a factual resolution yet even. In other words, we don't even know
That's fair.
where fault lies. That will
Okay.
be, if it can't be worked out in an amicable way, then the contract calls for arbitration, and that's what would be the next step.
Okay.
So at this point, we don't have a response. Would that be fair from the other members of the committee and Phil?
Accurate.
Yeah, right.
That's fine, that's.
Any other comments
Here.
at this point? Yeah.
I think most of the sports folks and coaches, except for maybe one, really just wants the field done correctly, whatever it takes, instead of rushing it. So it doesn't matter. I mean, I would probably encourage any large projects that probably never put a finish date on it or a due date for this reason. Some of the talk is that I think if and again, this isn't Monday morning quarterbacking or anything, but if the field was placed in the alternate spot, it would have alleviated some of the issues that we're having now. We would have had field play on the original field. The track probably would have been done. And you would have, instead of trying to rehab an old field, everything would have been brand new in that secondary location where I was the only one that wanted it there, so that's,
I mean,
but again, there's no way to honestly tell.
well, and I'm not sure, I think other people had been interested in alternatives.
Yeah.
But when we looked at the 12 different scenarios that the engineers worked out, that was and Phil could probably speak best being at all of those meetings and going through all of those. So,
But again, not to belabor,
Right.
I just think that most of the sports people have just want it done
Yeah.
right now at this point,
and I think we can all
however
agree.
long it takes.
Yeah, we can all agree with that comment, that it needs to be done right. And I think this is probably, do you want to add anything to that?
About the position?
Just
of the
doing it
field?
right.
Doing it,
Well,
No.
100%
Right.
committed to that. You know, there were opportunities put in front of us to acquiesce all along the way, and we said absolutely not. I think our exact words at a meeting on the 12th was, we have to stay here and work and live in this town, and we're gonna get this right. You get to pack up and go away someday,
Mhm.
and we're gonna be the ones answering for this, so it has to be right. So we're 100%, those of us involved in it on a daily, hourly basis are 100% committed to that.
And we've taken pictures of the different levels, so if you're ever looking for pictures of the process that's used or
Good. Might be helpful, so.
it might be, so just
Yeah.
keep in
Good.
mind.
And I think a number of people have done that.
Yeah.
The one thing I would, I'm sorry, Kelly.
I just wanted to say to Jan and to Joy, I mean, obviously this is not ideal, but you guys have worked to ensure that our sports are not interrupted, and that I think that speaks a lot to the partnerships that you've created in the community and just pulling all the resources that you can, so I'm very appreciative to that.
Thank you.
The only thing I would say at this point is, to your point about the sports being accommodated in different ways, we got some very good assistance from the Westbrook Board of
Yeah.
Education and the superintendent there. We're gonna be able to use the field, and we're also getting some very nice assistance from East Line, with the final game being under the lights like that. So I'm gonna send a nice letter thanking from this Board of Education to those two boards of education and their superintendents to make sure that they know that they're appreciated for all that they've done.
M&J as well.
Yeah.
M&J
We should
has
mention
helped us.
M&J's
Yeah.
provided fan buses for
Right.
the home football games to Westbrook and East
Right.
Line at no cost.
Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll make sure that our appreciation is expressed and, obviously do whatever you want to do individually. As you see people who you might know that are involved in those other organizations, they really came and stepped up to help the kids in a very
Definitely.
difficult situation.
We had an opportunity to thank them on everyone's behalf at the football game on Saturday. I saw the first selectman of Westbrook, the superintendent, the principal, and got a chance to thank them on behalf of all of us.
Great, thank you. Anything else on the 3T project?
No, just to sort of, I was just gonna say, just, feedback from the community has been positive despite the fact
Mhm.
that there are delays. So just so you know,
Mhm.
disappointing, but,
Right.
these, nobody, I don't think there's anybody who's ever built anything without all kinds of delays and things happening. So, I haven't heard a lot of super negative stuff. It's really, okay, stuff like this happens, we know you're on it, carry on kind of thing. So it's supportive,
Good to hear.
yeah.
Thank you. Joanne?
Kind of in that same light, I think that people, obviously are a little bit frustrated. However, the every Friday emails have been very, very well received. Again, we've tried to, open, honest, transparent. It has been incredibly well received. And people are, again, is really okay with it. Again, not happy, frustrated, I think to Karen's point, yeah, there's always bumps in the road. I mean, let's face it, we went all summer really smooth sailing, so it's unfortunate, but.
Right. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Strategic Action Plan, Year 4 update from Superintendent Peruccio.
I actually, at our last regular board meeting, gave you a copy of the update that we were working on that was in an incomplete form. I want to give out tonight a copy of the strategic plan that has been revamped. Remember, given that we were at the end of our 3rd-year mark, we thought this was an appropriate time to look at the time that we have left and the action steps that we have to take, and where actions had to be adjusted to meet and match initiatives that have come our way from other places. And it was a very important exercise to go through, and the second step of that exercise has been creating these official action steps for the 14-15 year, and in some cases, it even goes on by strategy for the 15-16 year. Again, I want to point out as I'm doing this that this is very closely connected to my goals, to the administrator's goals, and to the teacher's goals. That everything is tucked under the umbrella of the strategic plan. Making room for some of those other initiatives, while initially difficult and it sort of caused a stutter step in our progress, is now feeling a lot more seamless, I think. And I'm looking at Heston and Julie, because they engage in those conversations all the time. It's feeling a lot more like, okay, we see where these things can all fit together. If there aren't enough, I may have miscounted. If there aren't enough, I'll pass more around. Sure. Sense it that way. So I won't belabor it because you did see it last time, but I think now you have a cleaned up version with specific action steps. Sometimes by month, and we actually asked that everybody drill down to the month. Starting with strategy 1, assessing program effectiveness. We are at the stage where we're calling our first meeting together. Actually, it's our first meeting of the strategic plan committee in over a year, because a lot of that work, when we had leadership change, was misplaced in that it was stopped right there. Oliver Barton was in charge of this committee. We are, I'm happy to find out, at a stage where we're actually refining forms and processes to put this in place, what it is that we want to do, the logistics. There have also been a number of committees that have either been created or that already exist that are already doing a lot of the work of this strategy. The second one is improving internal and external communication. Julie leads this committee, and you can see that there are action steps to continue to improve internal and external communication. Our next community conversation is October 16th. I hope you all received an invitation and can come. It's at the middle school. That is being structured based on input from last year's community conversation, conversations we've had with stakeholders, and also our own goals and initiatives. We just want to let the public know what it is that we're working on this year. We also have a public relations committee up and running. So far we have worked on a logo, and we are nearly done with that work, and we're looking at putting a public relations plan together at this point. And also we have the athletic director extracurricular position that is doing a lot of work in that area too. Social and emotional needs. This is a place where a lot of the goals of the administration, this being a little bit more sensitive topic, really are connecting and relating. Kathy Bai and a number of building level administrators are working on the consult model and making sure that we have plans in place to assist all of our students in various social and emotional needs. That work continues, you can see, right through the May of 2015. She has every month there's an activity there. Character education, a lot of work continues to be done in culture and climate. And this also was born from the state initiative on bullying. We were doing our own thing here in Old Saybrook prior to me, and this was born from the bullying initiative. But they married very nicely. They end up being about creating a positive culture. It's also about safety and character education. We feel it's an awful lot about living and behaving the way we want students to behave and modeling that behavior. And so there's a lot of that sort of reflective work in there. The personal success plans, remember this is the one, if Eileen's not here, so she's not here to ask the questions, but I think she would ask, so where are we and are we getting appropriate professional development for it? So I'll answer the question for her. We have redirected and put a lot of emphasis on professional development at the high school, middle school level, and success planning. And there's small group work being done at the building leadership level on that. And Sheila Riffle and Joe Anastasio are spearheading that group. Critical thinking is Heston Sutton's work, and again, a lot of it is embedded in the work that CIOT is doing. We have a new grading committee, and if you come to community conversation, you'll hear about the philosophy conversations going on around grading. It's work that naturally falls in Heston and the Director of Curriculum Instruction's wheelhouse. It also connects nicely with our Digital Tools for Learning initiative that we're working on this year, and putting together a new technology plan to better instruct using digital tools for learning. So I just hit the highlights. I know you'll probably want to look some more at it, but this was, again, a recap of what you received last time, but now specific concrete action steps by month. We'll discuss this at DLT monthly, and we'll talk about progress made in each committee and how these things work together. I think another simple step that we took this year that is not only improving communication but also allows us to see how all these things work together is our sharing of minutes of meetings, which I think you're also receiving. You can see, if you start reading those, the patterns of work and how all of our efforts are supported by each other's. Today at DLT we shared administrators' goals, and we talked about how we're going to share those out with the general staff. Each administrator has shared his or her goals with staff they work with directly, but now we want to share them with all staff so that we all can see the connections and patterns amongst all of the schools and within the district.
Excellent. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Just
Yes,
quickly,
sure.
not related to this, but what you just mentioned about setting up the minutes, speaking for myself, very helpful to me.
Good.
I think it'll eventually eliminate a lot of questions at this table, because we're seeing, and as you say, we're seeing how it all ties, everything is tying together, so I really appreciate getting those minutes.
Good, I'm glad.
Yeah.
The only question I had, we have the community conversation on the 16th, and
Yes.
you had inquired about some board member involvement, specific board member involvement. Do you want me to just, do you want to talk about this at this meeting?
Sure.
So what is it that you would be helpful to you at that?
It would be great to have a board member with me and Kathy by. We're running the conversation on strategic plan, and we're going to go over this update and share this with whomever is interested in coming to that particular breakout session. And I would love to have someone from the board who was on the original strategic planning committee be part of the evening, just present with us.
So why don't some of you give that some thought, and we'll follow up after the meeting, just ask if anybody's interested in. I mean, I think it would be great to have at least one person who was part of the original working group.
Yeah.
But if other board members are interested in coming, I mean, these are public, these are open meetings, so feel free to come. It's just that it would be nice to have someone who could give a little bit of the history of how that all got started.
Absolutely.
So think about that, and we'll reach out to people who were part of the original group and see if anybody's interested in being a formal member of the presentation group. All right, any other questions on the strategic plan update? All right, thank you, Jan. The multi-school building project update, Jan and Julie.
Julie and I just want to remind you that we do have another project, and and it's very exciting too. In our spare time, right. It's a very exciting opportunity for both Goodwin and the middle school. We've had a few meetings. As you know, the board, serving as the building committee, hired Oak Park architect, and we've had a couple of meetings with Peter Chow, the principal of Oak Park. And one of them was just to go over some basic ideas that he had, and he asked us what next steps would be. So we told him one of the very important next steps would be to come to you and present his ideas to you, so you can give him permission to move forward or ask questions. He's planning to come on October 21st to the board meeting to present what he has done so far. We did, because we didn't want to miss this step. As someone who was a teacher in a classroom, I remember building projects happening around me and not understanding what was going on. We did go to Goodwin School today and invited any teachers who wanted to come to hear about what his thoughts were, so that they could give their thoughts. What does work about the present configuration of their window walls and what doesn't? And so we heard simple things like people we don't wanna have the double hung windows when you're reaching over radiators, right? So we wanna do something that allows for ease there. We asked questions like, and we made sure they understood that window treatments aren't part of the project, but if you've got a window wall and you need to do something that requires the room to be darker, how would you want us to be able to handle it? There's some logistical things that can be prepared for now. So they gave some input. That input will all be shared along with his presentation on the 21st. You're gonna hear some opinions. We had about 6 teachers, 6 total, right? There, including the principal. But we also had a custodian, so that was good. We got his perspective. Lots of questions about heating and heating and how that is, yeah, right, I know. Heating and how that would be impacted by the work being done on the windows. So they've had some thoughts to share, and he has something that he'll be ready to show us on the 21st. They've been up on the roof. They've taken tests to look at what they have. That was primarily a good report. And since we went out to bid for the architect, since we put the original plan together and went out to bid for the architect, of course, things have changed in the land of expenses of building. So we think we are running tight on the Goodwin project, but we think we're in really good shape on the middle school roof project. All in all, the money that's been allocated, the 3.9, looks sufficient at this time. But he's gonna come with better numbers for you. Have I left anything out?
We have been in contact with the state regarding the projects. They do allow you, they know that the preliminary applications that are filed are just that, preliminary, so they have, they allow you up until the General Assembly meets to refine your numbers, which we will do. And we also filed the window project as an energy conservation project, which could, if accepted and if it goes through as an energy conservation project, that could mean a lot more money back to the town.
Mhm.
So good news all the way around. Those
Fingers
projects
crossed.
so far are really
Mhm.
beginning to take shape nicely. But they, there is an ebb and flow to all projects, and they're bonded together, so that's great. The way the town has done that allows for that flexibility, which is usually always written into the call when the vote goes forward. So that was all taken into consideration.
And that was actually Julie's work to put it through as an energy project. And if that can happen, so if that door has been left open, that will be a real win.
Excellent. Any questions about the other building projects? Hearing none, we'll move on. Student enrollment, the annual report from Jan.
You have a full enrollment report. There's a letter, and then there's enrollment information. The second paragraph of the full report kind of tells the bulk of the story. The total full-time equivalent of teachers is 155.55, which is 2.5 reduction from the previous year. Enrollment and reallocation of teaching time had the greatest impact on that. Our kindergarten, as we told you earlier, was a little bit unusually big. It's an anomaly this year. Our pre-K was somewhat small. Our grade 3 saw some last-minute increases that no rhyme or reason to, unexpected completely. And that's resulted in an increase of about 25 students pre-K through 3 at this point. At the same time, though, you have a decrease of 30 students at the middle school, and the high school decreased by 19. So you have a total decrease over the district of 24 students since October 1st, 2013. Goes on to talk about homeschool students, the career incentive plan, and we did have 10 students in the class of 2018 who elected to not move on to Old Saybrook High School. We have 12 at the magnet right now. Those were not all 8th graders though, that's 12 total.
Any questions about the enrollment update? Report? All right, yeah, thank you very much. Mr. Sutman, professional development report.
This chart shows all of the connections that all of our professional development activities are combined with. So for example, if you start at the top and you look at the student learning objectives training, that's basically the training for teachers to set goals, measurable goals of student progress. And you can see that the connection is a federal and state initiative. So we're making sure, like nesting dolls in a way, that all of our professional development activities are fitting together with not only our goals, but the state initiatives, federal initiatives, and any initiatives that we have in the district, so that our teachers know exactly why we are putting time and effort into all these different activities. Like any other district, there are more topics that we can possibly fit in, but we are maximizing all of the possible hours that we can, including faculty meetings, half days, the strategic plan half days, the full day professional development days. The feedback from opening convocation, especially the opening act, was very positive, as well as all the activities that took place in the buildings were very positive. We put out a survey to the entire district so that we can get feedback on those opening days, and our district committee will be looking at the results of those and making sure that we improve for next year. So all in all, we're off to a really strong start with professional development, and I think the teachers, as well as the administrators, appreciate having all the connections made for us. So we are not picking and choosing, and we're all over the map.
Questions about professional development?
As always, board members are always invited to come to any and all.
Thanks very much, Justin. A disclosure letter from an employee, if you want to just walk us through that, Jan.
Yeah, this is from Julie Pendleton, and this is something that she has done annually. She's obviously our Director of Operations, Facility, and Finance, and she wants you to know that there are vendors for whom the district does business that employ members of our family. And her letter was dated September 29th. Last year, we consulted the attorney, the Code of Ethics, and the Old Saybrook Charter to determine this letter of notification meets disclosure requirements and that no further action is required.
Any questions? Thank you. The Enrich Foundation update.
I'm actually going to ask Julie to present this because she sits on the committee for the grant.
So, since we've received the total amount from the Enrich Foundation, the committee has met and they haven't determined any expenditures to date, but I will say they're close. The one thing that they have asked to look at, and I'm actually taking a field trip to a location that has some, we're going to call it an outdoor classroom. It would be a gazebo for the most part, which is what they would like to consider or have the board consider as a possible first purchase. They wanted to make a purchase that was long-lasting and that would reach the spirit of Mrs. Endrich and what she was, so nearly and dearly involved with in her kindergarten class. So they thought that this would constitute an outdoor classroom that would be really special, and that she would have loved for students to be able to observe nature and things that are going on in the outdoors, and that's what they intend or would intend for this gazebo to kind of be used for. It would be customized a little bit with benches so kids could sit and perhaps even work on projects or what might be woven into the curriculum, working with science and so forth. So once we have a dimension that seems to fit for an outdoor classroom size experience, we will be bringing that to the board and hopefully presenting that. In future endeavors, they've talked about each year kind of having a project of some sort, taking a small amount of that money. It's about almost $140,000 after the second disbursement came in. It's a good chunk of money that's been left. And they want to come up with projects on an annual basis, either enrichment that they bring in through cultural arts, that sort of thing. So they're looking and exploring a bunch of ideas. We meet Thursday morning again, so I'll have more information at that point.
Any questions? Very
remember they came in and the money's exclusively for Kathleen Goodman School.
Correct.
Is there a certain dollar amount that the board approves, or are we approving every nickel and dime that you spend, or is that your, I mean, can't you
There
just come back to us at the end? Maybe it's not set that way, but.
Yeah, there actually is no approval process per se by the board. I think it's
Okay,
been
just, okay.
more keeping the board informed. And in the
Okay.
case of this classroom, of course, that would require the board's approval because it would be adding a structure.
Yeah.
So that's why that would come back to you. But I think they'll just, want to report on an annual basis the kinds of things they've done with the money.
Or
So
if
that-
it's, or if, or quarter, if it's that aggressive, then either, twice a year maybe. If
Sure, right.
once
If
or
it's,
something, or-
I think it's going to end up
Sure,
being
okay.
an
We
initiative
don't
a
have to
year.
approve every nickel and dime.
No, it's really
we're
the
not-
nature.
We're not approving, you're right. We're gonna just get periodic reports.
Thanks.
And then we'll make sure that we express our appreciation appropriately. The one thing that you might wanna work out is, maybe running whatever structure might be proposed informally by whatever land use
Oh,
authorities
yes, it has to
first.
go through that whole process,
Rather-
the permit
but
process.
But before we approve it.
Oh, okay.
In other words, just run it by informally, because if we end up approving something that then can't be built because it's just, whatever the land use restrictions are, then we'd have to redo it. So it might be a good idea just to
Mhm.
run it by informally, save us a step, and then when we approve it, we know that it's got a pretty good shot of being approved. I mean, they won't give you an
Absolutely.
official answer until there's an official meeting on the whole thing, but they can usually give you an idea that
Yeah,
you've got a problem or you
absolutely.
don't
Yeah,
have a problem.
it's a
Right.
preliminary permit process.
Correct. Are those hands, your hand?
And hand, yeah.
Your hand first, Jan.
No, I just want a point of clarification. It's the board's pleasure. You would like to have an update on the Enbridge report 2 times per year? Would that work?
Whatever.
I think
Good.
twice
Yeah,
a year is
That's
fine.
fine. I just want to make sure I get it right and make sure that it happens.
And then anything exceptional like this,
Yeah.
where we might have to approve something, right? Mr. Sutton?
I just wanted to mention to Julie that I know it has to be built to code and structure and everything, but I'd love for it to be presented to our engineering students, give them a shot at a design concept for it. That'd be a great authentic project for them. Even if it doesn't come to fruition, it'd
Yeah,
be
that's a good idea.
a great opportunity for them.
Can do that. It was, they were looking at a sort of a pre-constructed
Right.
unit, but there certainly would be pieces of putting that together as far as, the foundation and the base it has to go on and that sort of thing. So there could be a direct involvement for them.
Cool.
That'd be
Thanks.
great.
All right. So we're gonna move on to the discussion of audio recording and board member remote participation in meetings. We'll have, the superintendent and Julie and perhaps Mr. Sutton update us on this, just for everybody's edification, in particular people who were not at the evaluation meeting. We had continuing discussions about how could we capture information about the board meeting and make sure that it was accessible to the public. And we also had discussions about when board members are not able to physically participate in the meeting. Under Connecticut's public meeting law, you're allowed to remotely participate in meetings, but there's all kinds of restrictions in terms of how much we can hear you when you're not in the room, and you have to be able to hear everything we do and all that. So we actually, at the last meeting, discussed about the convergence of those two ideas. If we were going to buy a WebEx system that would allow someone to call in and participate in a meeting, would that also be a technology that we could use to record meetings so that members of the public who wanted to hear what was going on at board meetings, could potentially access it on the district website or something like that. And so that's what we'll get a little bit of an update on where we are with the WebEx and how that might work with one or both of those goals of ours: community communication and board member participation, remote participation in meetings.
I'm actually going to ask Julian Heston to talk about the technical piece of it, because it came out of the IT department, the work that was done to prepare the response that you asked for tonight. And then I'll talk a little bit about our policies that are in place. But what was researched here was researched by Mike Gardner in IT. And he looked at, the question posed to him was, we would like something that would allow us at least audio, that would allow us to archive, whether it's for posting on the website or, so that people would be able to access the meeting and listen to it. He was also asked to come up with a plan that would do that and allow participants to participate remotely, using multiple means, phone, laptop, iPad, any other device, so that they could participate using simple equipment. And so what he's given you here is a plan that would allow them to do that. Could even allow, depending on the package that we purchase, them to be Skyped in so that they could see us and we could see them. And simple headset, just a simple headphones, and they'd be able to participate in that way. So I'll let Julian Heston talk about the hardware and its capabilities. Please.
So, it is a WebEx process. It's an annual fee that WebEx charges for their service, as well as some equipment that has to be purchased in order to make it all work. The first initiative that we researched was exactly that, recording, having a remote conversation. Obviously, the most inexpensive way to do that is simply by the individual calling in remotely on their own phone, on a cell, on any landline, whatever they have convenient to them. And it is recorded through WebEx. It does require that audio has to be downloaded from WebEx, and then it is formatted, and it would be something that could in fact be put on our website at that point. So there's a little bit of a process to get it there. It can also be, it's audio or video, depending on what you have set up, as Jan said. And both require the manipulation of that data from WebEx and then downloaded onto a format that would be put onto the website. The not tricky part, but the part of it that you have to kind of determine is, there's an amount of storage that you buy for each package. So this package, just to have a starting point, would allow you to essentially have 2 sessions, so like 2 monthly meetings, because we kind of thought out loud about how many meetings a month and that sort of thing. What you have to remember though is, so if we have a meeting and we're just taping, audio taping, let's say, that uses up a certain amount of storage, and that's what this would cover. If you have somebody calling in, that's times 2. So that one, call-in, if it's a 2 or 3 hour meeting, could in fact use up a very substantial chunk of your monthly subscription. That's not to say you can't buy more or that there's, an overage charge, but that's just sort of the basis of how this is built. It's doable. It's probably the format that is used by a lot of corporate entities. It's fairly easy to adapt to. If you want to call in or remotely go voice over IP through your computer, it requires a little bit more manipulation for the user. The user on the other side, their computer has to be adapted to be able to have that voice over IP capability. So it's not simple to say that, oh, you can use any device. Yes, you can, but some devices would have to be configured so that adaptability would be there. A phone is probably the easiest one and requires the least amount of adapting. So that's kind of the overview of it. It's capable, like they said, of audio and video, and it can be downloaded into a format so that we could put that onto the website and kind of rotate the meetings through, or however the board would wish to have those be available to the public.
Any questions or comments at this time? Yeah.
I'm familiar with the WebEx. Last time we discussed, not last time, but for about 6 months ago, we
April, yeah.
portability of this thing, which
Mm-hmm.
I was sort of against, because you don't know who's using it, who's setting it up. Is this strictly for here in this bit?
That was where we had left it off. I thought it would
It
be
can
easy
be,
to hear.
it can be portable, and it does come in a portable case, Vito, if you want to order it that way. But it's certainly the pleasure of the board. It could, I guess if you thought you were going to have standard meetings, you'd want to have it in probably
So-
the same place most of the
Yeah,
time.
and so the issue is, we have at least 3 meetings a year in each of the buildings. And so we'd have to figure out what would we do about those meetings, if someone needed to call in, or if we wanted to continue this new practice, which we will adopt at some point, it looks like, of actually recording our meetings and making them accessible. So, you know, we have more to discuss it before we make a final decision, but that was the issue. You know, and then again, on occasion, you know, there would be something that might occur in one of the auditoriums where, you know, we're gonna have, you know, something open to the public where we would wanna record that, you know, where we would expect more members of the public to come, you know, if there was a big, you know, issue that we were gonna have some sort of a discussion on like that. So at the very least, there'd be 3 times a year where we'd be in the buildings, and there could be other occasions. But what we had talked about first was just what would it take to equip this room, right?
Yeah.
And so now what you're saying is that they could buy that same thing with the portability?
That equipment is portable.
That is portable.
It is
Okay.
portable. And, you know, I understand Vito's thinking behind this because, you know, anytime you move stuff around, any kind of equipment,
Yeah, you could
you know,
break it or whatever.
you certainly increase that,
Damage.
yeah, that chance. But it is portable, whether you use it and set it up in a permanent way, or whether you wanna pack it up and bring it, you know, to another site. It's certainly doable. This does allow you to do that. And the one thing that was, seemed very simplified was, you know, for that person calling in, it's literally a number that they call into. You know, you pick it up and it's
Right.
very easy from that perspective, and the equipment's not too big and bulky.
Yeah. And I like the ability to be able to call in, and you broaden the scope now, for a board member call in. That eats up the minutes, your free minutes. So if you have a 3-hour board meeting, 180 minutes. So you have 3 board members call in, that's 180 times 3.
You could use up your monthly, you know, subscription.
Okay, so okay.
Right.
So you get charged for.
It's actually the memory, you know, the amount of space it takes up. But, you know, the overage fee, I think, is, it's either 7 or 9 cents.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's minimal. So, I mean, if you go over by an hour, it's, you know, it's a few dollars. But that's not likely in a given month.
Mhm.
But it does afford you that capability.
So Jan and Julie, what would the next steps be? We've got a basic proposal that seems very responsive to what the board had asked you to look into. That could at the very least address the one issue, and that is the call-in, remote participation, and also might address the other issue of, you know, having meetings available for members of the public who can't attend our meetings. So what do you want us to do with what you've given us? Or what would you see as a timeline for perhaps the board making a decision on this?
I think, as far as, we would need some information from the board as to what your pleasure is. Would you like this to be audio and video? How would you like it then disseminated? Do you want it, put it on our website? Because we are, you know, in the process of finalizing that work with the website and having the conversation with them now about, okay, so we want to archive these one at a time. I don't think you could archive more than that on your website. You probably could archive the last meeting. So we need some direction from you about where you'd like to see, what you'd like to see archived, where you'd like to see it archived. Do you want it on local cable access, on our website, all of the above? And then we can move forward and put a plan together and consider the number of minutes that we would purchase, consider exactly what hardware we would purchase, and look into the setup and breakdown component of it so that we can make sure that portable really is portable.
So we've discussed this on a couple of occasions since the issue of you know, public access to our meetings as well as the remote participation of board members. So what's the board's sense tonight? What are people thinking tonight to be responsive to some of the questions, you know, Jan asked? We probably won't make the decision tonight, but let's get some issues out on the table, and then we can all think about it, and then maybe at the next meeting we can take more affirmative action on what we're gonna do. Because you haven't, I mean, you're asking us about, we don't actually have to approve your purchase of this equipment. I mean, there's
Correct.
money in the budget for it. But
Below
for
the
it,
dollar amount.
it's a low dollar amount, and it's in the budget, and it's a very useful tool on a lot of levels. It could be used for professional development, Heston, if you had small groups that needed to WebEx in a trainer who was gonna be in another location. So there's lots of uses for something like WebEx. But, you know, what are the board's feelings about it being used for our meetings, either for calling in or for public access. Yes, Kelly?
I mean, I'm in favor of doing this. I think that this is a good solution. I think there's a lot of thought put into it by the IT staff. We've been talking about this for a long time. This has been one of our goals. I guess my only comment is when we figure out the subscription for about how we're gonna do, I would like to, if there is a need for it, to incorporate in time for the staff in the central office to also be included in that subscription, so that it's not only for the board members. If you feel used for, like Mario was saying, for professional development, or if you feel like it would be helpful to maybe
Sure.
record one of those trainings for people that can't attend during that time period, I would like that included in the allotment.
Other comments?
So,
Karen?
is there,
And then Joanne?
what's the cost associated with broadcasting through Comcast? With that?
I
Is
don't
there?
know.
As far as the cost to broadcast, I don't believe there is any.
Okay.
It's your cost in terms of recording and
Okay.
staffing and all that.
Okay.
Joanne?
It appears that, boards in our area do something different, but is there a recommendation what is best practice?
No, it's very divided. You'll talk to some superintendents and boards of education who are not fans of it for very specific reasons, and there are others who say, we've done that for years, we only do audio, we do audio and video, we archive it, we show it. They all handle it very differently.
Yeah.
We-
There doesn't
we
seem to
did
be a
that recently.
standard
No.
practice.
There's not.
You would think by now there would be.
Right.
And I guess I would, kind of, just to dovetail on Kelly's comment, I would want this to be, if there was an opportunity for much more of an educational base. Whether it be professional development, will it be an opportunity for students? Again, if there's some tie-in between, Megan talks about the internship, if there's some tie-in between, real life opportunity, consultants, professionals, to somehow, if there's a call-in or something, some kind of professional tie-in to school and the kids. We're gonna make this investment. This is the again, 21st century skills, this is where they're going. This is how business does meetings every day of the week. So they are gonna be quite savvy into this world, whether it be audio or video, so they need to get comfortable in this type of a meeting setting. How do you behave in a meeting? How do you conduct yourself when somebody else is on the other line?
Good point. Yes, Vito?
I think when we started, that was our intent was to allow a board member to attend a meeting electronically. But I'm in favor of whatever piggybacks on. But just reading the note, you're only allowed up to 8 remote callers
This particular
in
package.
this package.
Yeah, that,
Okay, which is not a lot. So if you're.
But that would be remote to participate. That would mean 8 of the board members would need to be
Okay,
listed on
remote
one night.
callers would be strictly board members.
Right.
Yeah.
The
Other
downloading.
people
and the-
wouldn't be calling
Got it.
into our
Okay,
meetings.
thank you.
So one
Yeah,
of us would have to be in this room.
Okay.
And
So it'd be like
No, that's fine.
and 8 of us can be anywhere in the world.
Okay.
oh, Mario, want to just liberate the board.
Well, we never have to
I
come
know,
here.
So I'll ask you first and then Mr. Sutton. Yes.
Yeah, sure. I think it would be really great for educational purposes. I know about a week ago I had a conference call over the phone. I'm facilitating at this RILA conference at the end of the month. So all these kids got together and had a conference call over the phone, and obviously that was my first time. So it'd really be great to have this as an educational purpose to kind of get a base of like how you actually conduct yourself over a phone or what goes into a conference call. Because I mean, personally, I never had that experience, and I don't think many other students have that opportunity or experience.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Mr. Sutton, thank you.
I was at a science, technology, engineering, and math conference yesterday up at the Connecticut Science Center. And some of the things that are happening around the state is this is happening in classrooms. And for example, NASA has a program that grade levels can call and speak to an astronaut. And they actually do demonstrations and experiments while the students are live in the classroom, back and forth. It's kind of like Skype in a way, if you're familiar with Skype. And at the beginning of the year, the technology was $3,000 per classroom. but already is down to $1,000 per classroom. So as technology evolves very quickly,
Right.
this is something that, classrooms can get involved with professionals in the field. Why am I learning this? This is why. 'Cause this engineer is right now is designing a bridge, and this is what he's working on, and have live conversations back and forth. So it brings the curriculum to life, which is really important for engagement for our students. So I would say you're being great role models for our students. If we pave the way here, that will enable us to do more and more with students in the classroom and teachers.
When you sign on, my only technical question is, it's got the 500 minutes per month. Is that variable or flexible?
Yes.
So in other words, you're not like locking yourself into a year's contract at that, and
No, you can change
you
it.
can
It's kind of
change
like
that as
your,
it goes
it's
along.
kind of like your,
So based on our
cell phone.
experience, right, based on our experience, we may say,
Yeah, we
that's
need
not
more,
enough, or we
right.
need more, or
Yep.
whatever, and we could always change that. Okay.
absolutely.
All right, well, why don't we all give this some thought, and we'll have you just finalize whatever final questions you have, and then we'll move with this. All right? Yes?
I just have one more question about archiving practices. If we can just look into what that looks like, how long, just because at some point storage is gonna be
It
an
is-
issue.
that
It's
is the
not-
issue.
I don't think we'd be able to archive
Right.
much more than 1 or 2 meetings, not if we're gonna use our website as
Okay.
the way of archiving. If we're gonna use some other format, then there's a possibility to do things differently. Comcast, if you give them a local meeting, I think sometimes you get airtime, sometimes they just show it. And, I see a lot of the Haddam Killingworth stuff at home, and you see a lot of the same meeting over and over again. So that would be a very different animal, but if the board wants to keep it on the website and have people go there, I can show you, I know of one example. Rocky Hill is one that archives their board meetings on their website, and I think they just keep a few there, so there's enough time for people to be able to see it, to view it anytime they want from their home computer, and then it disappears over time.
Yeah, when I talked to the tech department, they said like a month at a time kind of thing is what,
So it gives people a
Yeah.
month to catch up with the meeting,
Yeah,
and then.
that's what they were
Because if you wanna
saying.
keep, that's a lot of space, especially
Yeah.
video, that if you're
And
gonna
that's-
host this,
yeah.
so you wanna rotate it.
Exactly.
Okay. Anything else? All right, very good. Then looks like we've maybe solved a couple of goals, or reached a couple of goals very soon. Budget update, Jan and Julie?
Okay. I'm just gonna talk about salaries and health insurance, and I'll let Julie talk about transportation, special education, and some other expenses that we've incurred that we want you to know about. As you know, the hiring process just went well as far as money goes. We had a number of top step people retire, and we were able to employ some folks who were not nearly at top step. It ended up being a little over $100,000 in actual budget money, although it was more like $150,000. We always include a $50,000 reduction because we see that typically every year. So a little over $100,000 to the good in the 14-15 budget. And then, of course, as you know, we did very well on our medical insurance renewal. It was just under a negative 8%, which we are very grateful about. And so there was a savings about $115,000 in the budget. Of course, what you can't predict is people adding to their families, which is always joyous, but also insurance costly. So there's that sort of thing happening, and we have some new employees who are taking two-person families. So we're seeing that erode over time. The savings that originally saw. That's not uncommon with medical insurance. You always hope to have a good number come in because you know that your actual numbers in enrollment will change over the course of the year. And Julie was the transportation, she's the transportation czar and the person who put the bid together, so I'll let her talk a little bit about that.
So, a couple of factors with transportation. As you know, we have a new contract, so there were some increases there that contribute to an overall deficit in transportation. As well as when we built the budget last year, this is the time of year we're starting to put the budget together for a whole year away, and we actually had 2 more special education runs than we had when we built the budget. So, you combine those 2 together, and it doesn't take long to come up with a pretty good sized number. The good news about that, or at least some relief to that, is we will get some reimbursement through the agency placement and excess cost reimbursement. But we have to actually expend it out of the budget for that to occur. So that account looks, always looks more in a deficit situation than it truly is because of the reimbursement that comes back to us. And that's the same for special ed, tuition costs. We have a number of additional placements. We were talking with budget and fiscal earlier, and it's a revolving door. One week we're joyous because we've brought a student back, which is always such a great goal and something that we love to see happen. And then something happens and one or two either come to our district that we didn't know about, or a placement occurs that is unanticipated, and so it's sort of an ebb and flow, and it goes along with that account. Every year you hear us talk about it being sort of a revolving door. So we do anticipate a much larger than normal deficit in that account, again with anticipated reimbursement coming back to us from the state. So it's been a difficult year in those two categories for sure. Those are the four areas that we've seen the biggest swings, both plus and minus. So we're in the process now of we just finished the first quarter, September 30th. So now we'll take all of those numbers after we've had all our staff in place and so forth, and we'll begin to project the first quarter projection and bring that to you in the next 30 days or so.
Can you talk a little bit about a couple of the things that needed to be repaired and fixed this year that kind of pop out at you?
Yep, we did have a hot water heater that was a big ticket item at the middle school. We had, we've had a couple of repairs to large pieces of equipment in the kitchens, in the walk-ins, we had an oven go. Every so many years, and I just heard today that an oven in food service looks like it might have, hopefully it's just a small repair, so we don't know the nature, but those things go, and they're big ticket items, that you can't really anticipate, and we don't replace them, until we absolutely have to. We'll if the repair is feasible and it seems cost effective, then we often do the repair work instead. So they come up. And our capital plan, we're holding back on some of those items as we do till the spring. We did file another safety grant, so we may see a little bit more money if we're lucky. We're always looking for ways to try to mitigate those unanticipated things that come along.
Any questions about the budget update?
A lot to juggle sometimes, but.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so the last item is the 2014-2015 and 2015-16 Board of Education meeting schedule. And there are really two items here, one of which we'll take an action, I hope, tonight, and the other we're going to need a little time to decide what we're going to do. So the first issue is that our meetings coincide with the Board of Finance meetings. And we used to meet at 7:30, but we moved it to 7 o'clock, and then they moved theirs to 7 o'clock. And we've talked about trying to alternate Tuesdays with them, and it just hasn't worked out. So what we had talked about at our board self-evaluation meeting was changing our time back to 7:30. And the reason is because, Jan and Julie and Joanne, for that matter, are usually asked to be present at many of the Board of Finance meetings to give an update of the Board of Education budget. They have agreed that if you could show up at 7, that you could go on first for the most part. Dave LeMay. So the accommodation would be to have our meetings start at 7:30, which would give Jan, Julie, and Joanne, the three J's, Jan, Julie, and Joanne, the opportunity to get to the Board of Finance meeting, have a half an hour to make presentations and answer questions, and then get back here so that we can start our meeting. So it seems to be the best accommodation. So that's what I'll ask you, because we have to notice our meetings. So we'll have to alert the town clerk, we'll have to, I believe, alert the Secretary of State, and we'll have to change all of our postings on our website to indicate that our meetings henceforth will start at 7:30 instead of 7 o'clock. So our meetings, we know what our schedule is through the entire academic year, but public meetings are scheduled or posted with the Secretary of State and the clerk's office on a calendar year. So right now, technically, all we have to correct is between now and our meetings in December. But we'll know that as we're building the official next year's budget that has to be sent to the clerk, the town clerk, and to the Secretary of State, that we're talking about 7 o'clock meetings. We'll correct what we need to correct now for all the public postings, and we're pretty much henceforth going to start meeting at the 7:30 timeframe. The second thing we talked about, which we agreed at the last meeting, really wouldn't have much of an impact on the fall, is that we did take certain meeting, which would be normally Tuesdays for Board of Education meetings, and in our schedule, we indicate them as possible committee meetings or schedule them as committee meetings. And the determination, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, those who were there, that we didn't really see any change in the fall schedule. And when you have the election and Thanksgiving and all, there's, I think, only one meeting in November, but there wasn't a really easy way to change that one. But starting in January, we were all going to take a look at the January to the end of the year and look to see if we wanted to take one or more of the meeting days that were scheduled as committee meetings and restore them to full board meetings. We don't have to make that decision tonight. I just wanted to remind everybody, what would probably make the most sense would be for the executive committee in Jan, so that would be Karen and Joanne and I. George is the one that's been asking us to consider that, so include George. This is just informal conversation. No official action obviously happens until we come back to the Board of Education and discuss it, but we would try to work out a proposal as to which of the Tuesdays that are currently listed as committee meetings on our spring schedule, we would restore to full board meetings. All right, so that's just to give you the whole overview, but all we're going to do tonight and all I need right now is a motion to change the Board of Education meeting start time from 7 o'clock p.m. to 7:30 p.m. starting on October 21st. So moved by Karen, seconded by Kelly. Is there any discussion?
What's the end time is?
Well, one of the things we did discuss, what we did discuss was our meetings have been very efficient. Right now, this is an unusually efficient meeting, but, we started an hour and 10 minutes ago, and we're on the last agenda item. So there was a time when our meetings were really going until, midnight and like that. We've made a lot of progress in terms of some of those efficiencies. So we will have to be even more efficient if we want to get the meetings to end at a reasonable time.
Last time, it might have been a year ago, I suggested that we have a second meeting, and it was said that, but if we need a meeting, we do a special meeting. And so that's.
Well, what did you say? You said if we needed another meeting,
well,
we do a special meeting?
We were having, because we met so
right.
infrequently, so many things were tabled.
Yeah.
Like once a month, and this is when we had parents coming in, this is when we had a big agenda. And I suggested that in some of the committee meetings, we actually open up to another meeting to get, so that on some more regular basis. And then all of a sudden, things started to die down.
Right.
And, but if that's what you want to do.
So we will have a much more detailed discussion on the meeting issue. Right now, the only motion on the floor is changing the time. But we'll have a more, and going back a couple of years, one of the things we tried to do was to have the committees do a little bit more of the work so that we would, have, and they're all public meetings, everybody can come to any committee meeting they want, so that things that came to the Board of Education would be maybe more refined. But it seemed like we were not reaching that goal, and we were doing all the work again anyway at the board meeting. So after having a couple of attempts at that, the discussion moved to, well, maybe we'll just restore one or two of those board meetings and not run into some of those issues where things get very crammed and the meetings go very late. So this is along the same lines of what you're talking about.
I think it's also that from some of the discussion that we're having is that it wasn't only that because I feel like we are getting things done in the subcommittee meetings.
Yeah.
There is a lot of work being done, but none of the committees were actually utilizing that
times.
second Tuesday to be able to meet, right? Because budget and
Mhm.
fiscal usually meets before meetings,
Right.
policy meets during the day, so that you have the availability to the staff here. And so that was another opportunity just to kind of even out the agenda as opposed to the discussion that we had, so.
Yes, thank you, absolutely true. So the motion on the floor, which is seconded, is only to address our start time. And so if I can add, this is to move our start time to 7:30 from 7 o'clock. And if there's no further discussion, then I'll call the question. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed or any abstentions? All right, so we'll correct all of these reminders that you have that show meetings starting at 7 o'clock. And our meetings will start at 7:30, and that'll give time for us to be represented at the Board of Finance meetings. And then we'll give some thought, you're very welcome, we'll give some thought to the sort of resurrecting, as it were, meetings to full board meetings. Yes, Holly?
I just had a question on here. It says November 25th
Mhm.
as a meeting, but is one of those possible? So
Right. So that is a meeting, that is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving.
It's listed now as possible committee or
Right,
regular board
right.
event.
So what we typically do, we will have to make a judgment call. We can cancel a meeting. We rarely do it, but we'll have to see how much work we have. I don't want to take it down and then have to repost it. This is just, if you don't mind, sort of leaving it there for now. We can potentially make a decision, a meeting or so before that, maybe at least the meeting before, as to whether we think we're gonna need. What usually has happened with the Tuesday before, the Wednesday before the Thursday, which is Thanksgiving, is a lot of people are traveling and not here. So we have had times when it's been difficult to get a quorum on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. So if we need the meeting, we will have the meeting, it's posted, all right? If we don't need the meeting, and we'll probably, I'm sure we can announce that by November 14th, we'll be able to announce whether we're gonna have a meeting on the 25th or not.